Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to SP Reviews, where today I have the pleasure of checking out a track by an act named Drazmatik, titled The Last of Us. And if we switch over to here, we also have featured artist Killah Cal, NikkiNailBomb and Watts with Drazmatik, and we're going to listen through this track from start to finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it. What do we got? Oh, I'm liking the guitar effects here alongside the vocal reverbs. There's a lot going on here. I like that the guitar is in the middle and has a filter on it, which allows it to remain a little bit more subtle, even with the intense shred going on. I like how the lady vocals are double tracked to the side so that it's nice and wide, and I like how subtle the drums are as well. A nice combination of different elements there.
Yo, I travel through the desert on a horse and no name. Pure hope, no gain, with 10 cents to my name. I flipped the chains and turned it into dollars. You listen to them dudes, I'ma take heed from scholars. I suck on.
It's so busy. There's so much going on with the drums in there. It's getting close to being a little bit too much personally for my tastes. I think that with the intensity of what we had going on with the... Hang on a minute. Just my nano leaf panels on the side, they're acting up. Before in that chorus line, we had a lot going on with the guitars. They were sort of a sub layer, I think, which is a really good mixing decision there. Alongside the double track vocals with a different singer there that sort of contrasted well with who I assume is Drazmatik in the centerfold at the moment with the verse.
Some things will never change like that Pac song. We always be enemies, we'll never get along. Therefore, we gon' let bygones be bygones and so on. I'll carry on, back to the regular schedule.
Hang on a minute. Yeah, I'm just trying to sort of take precedent of what's going on there with the guitar leads on the side now. It's really full sounding.
Get the bag, skate off the low top vans. No skateboard, but I'm on the roll. Eastern Standard Time in this bitch, you know how it goes. I'm about my biz, I'm about my dough. You run cause I work for self. You hustle for sneakers, I hustle for wealth. Drazmatik, I flipped it and ran it like no one else.
Step into the light, when everything's aligned. It was always there, but to find it, I tried it 3 times.
Is there a little bit of phasing on the vocals, or is that simply an effect that's being incorporated in there? I like that there's a little more simplicity to the arpeggios or broken chords on the guitar side of things. I think that it adds a bit more space to this without the intensity of that drum fills and 16th note part grooves that we had in those tail bits.
Skill dude. Let's go. You already know what it's about. When them guitars come out, then you hear that boom, boom, tap. You know what them drums be about. Yup, Killah and Drazmatik, they still at it. Hard sold it, so yeah. Doing rock and roll. You know them prices just ran up. You gotta put a couple grand up, or go and get your band up. I spit a hot rhyme for the coach, every nigga stand up. When thinking about me and Draz, people don't always understand this, but this that shit that make the crowd go bananas live on set. A skateboard is tearing up the canvas. When me, I'm blowing piff up in the Hamptons. Yeah, for dinner, lobster and steak. For breakfast, waffles and grapes. When the world was walking.
I mean, it sounds like a nice dinner and a nice breakfast. I'm just trying to sort of connect how it goes to the title, The Last of Us. Is it talking about The Last of Us as The Last of Us who are succeeding, or The Last of Us who are true to it, or something like that? I like the fact they're sort of talking about the guitars and the drums and sort of the semi-originality of it. I don't even think semi-originality is a thing. That doesn't make any sense. It's just, it's kind of nice to have the acoustic drums in there as like a way of setting the groove there, as opposed to a lot of the sample stuff that we get nowadays. But are we focusing on that within the lyrics and calling back as a chemistry thing? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be paying attention to in this track. I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to be paying attention to the guitar solo in the center, or if I'm supposed to be paying attention to the vocals on the side. Because the little individual elements that sound great on their own. The tremolo or vibrato effect on the guitar in the center is kind of nice. There's a little bit of a resonance to it, which I'm not super duper into, but it's a nice sort of change in texture to what we've had previously with the drums and the guitars and the vocals on the side. Maybe we'll just make it through the night. I mean, this is gorgeous. I'm not really sure how to feel about this song, because this is the conclusion of my review of this track, The Last of Us by Drazmatik, featuring Killah Cal, NikkiNailBomb and Watts. I'd say this is one of the most musically busy songs I've heard in quite a while, and I listen to a wide range of instruments. A wide range of genres, should I say. I mean, to be fair, I do listen to a wide range of different instruments in these reviews. What do I think this track is about? Part of me is trying to consistently and constantly associate what I'm hearing from the story, the side of things, to what's going on in the actual song and the story that's being told there. And there were little bits I got there where we were talking about, like again, like talking about the lobster for dinner and like the waffles for breakfast and stuff like that. There was the chorus parts where we were talking about making it through the night. Some people talking about like buying sneakers and I'm building wealth. I'm just trying to tie that back in. Is it simply saying that we're like a unique kind of individual who is doing things differently, or we're doing things the way we used to or we were supposed to and other people aren't? Making it through the night is that if we continue to be true to ourselves, that we'll eventually get to a point where that authenticity pays off. I'm debating it on several different levels. I think that these are messages that the individual musicians wanted to put forward, and I'm sure there's more nuance there that I'm missing. I'm kind of cherry picking parts that I heard clearly, primarily because just from a review perspective, with me trying to sort of take in everything at once, there were other things within the song that I was sort of like interested in, as well as the lyrics that were being told. The rapping was fantastic. The guy was clear with his words and the flow was solid, and there was variation there and it was crisp and really nice to listen to. I mean, I assume NikkiNailBomb might have been doing the side vocals in the chorus. You know, she's a great vocalist as well. Great control of her head and chest voice. Really phenomenal performance there. I'm really happy with that. I'm not sure where Killah Cal came in. I'm not as familiar with these. I mean, this is the first time I've listened to these musicians, so they could have had a verse each. Or Watts. I'm assuming, hang on, who's Watts? So this is kind of like a group project. I think these are a few musicians who are sort of like coming up and they're featuring on this track with their own individual talents and everything like that. And I think that's a smart move. You know, like if you can create a banger of a track and get it out there and have people enjoy it, it can literally build careers. And I think that individually the musicians within this played well enough that I think the individual elements were fantastic. Like, again, if we have vocalists that are very competent within their vocal technique, know how to sort of create interesting melodies that work well with the hook lines and the various parts of the verses, as well as the chorus, know how to harmonize well with the rest of the accompaniment arrangement in the chorus, especially with how busy those guitar lines were. I think that's testament to the success that they've had within this. I think the transitions between the various parts of the song in regards to the structuring was solid. You know, like it sounded professional. You know, it reminded me of some of the music from like the 90s and early 2000s and stuff like that. It had a kind of old schoolish kind of vibe, especially with the filtering and the way that the drums were processed, especially with the analog acoustic drum kit with a lot of like the sort of fills and stuff like that. I think the drums were too heavy and too busy in this track. I think there was just too much going on with some of those 16th note grooves there. It was just filling up space that was already kind of busy because of a lot of the guitar effects that were going on, the bass line, the rapping flow. I personally, this is a subjective thing, so I'm not saying they've done something wrong here. This is just as a reviewer, this is my interpretation of it. Typically, if you're going to have something be busy, let that be the main component and have the rest be supportive of it. You know, I'm not going to try and tell these guys how to write their music because they clearly understand music theory and composition from the ideas that were present within this track. There were no weird notes out of place here, no sort of unhinged harmonies or flat seconds or anything like that. It's not like we went to sort of existential with the extensions or we were failing or falling over ourselves. The performances were competent. There was just a lot of notes for what it was. And I think that's kind of the same opinion I have about the guitar lines. As someone who also plays guitar, and I'll be the first to admit that when I have done improvisations, that I have been way too busy with my lead lines and solos and stuff. And I've gotten some pretty harsh criticism about it in the past from people, and I've had to learn from that even though it sucked. And I'm not saying that they necessarily did the wrong thing here. The guitars were so busy in this. There was a lot of shred and legato or picked work here. I just don't know what story it was trying to tell. I don't know what it was trying to communicate. Often when I work with students that I teach, I go, try and treat the guitar solo like you would a vocalist, like singing a melody line. At least for a little bit of it. And I can tell that we're aware of this because we did do some really interesting broken chord arpeggiated stuff in some of the bridge sections and such. But I just feel that we could have had just as much of an experience, or maybe even a better experience, if we'd slow down occasionally. We could obviously play well. It isn't a matter of showing that we can play well, because the lead playing's clear. It's not that we can't play. There's just a lot of notes, and especially when you combine that with the relative busyness of the drums. I'm so thankful that NikkiNailBomb on those side vocals managed to smash out sort of held legato or half or whole note passages with her vocal lines, and that they didn't do too much ornamentation throughout, because I think that's what saved it. If you'd also had the kind of massive sort of vocal sort of waves and trills and tails and stuff like that you do have in some sort of R&B and stuff, it just would have been too much. It would have been unpalatable. Again, it's not a comment on a lack of understanding of music theory and composition. The performances were solid. It's just subjectively, I just think there was too much going on in the motif or the arrangement, which is what was a breath of fresh air with less going on. And at the end part where things sort of came out and you just had some interesting sort of oscillating guitar lines or some synths and stuff like that, it was like, this is kind of what I wanted. I wanted things to come down a little bit. I just wanted things to be chill sometimes and nice and simple. I know that it's important to keep the listener's attention in this day and age, especially with the amount of competition there is out there, but it's give and take. But anyways, look, outside of that, I mean, I think that it was definitely engaging and interesting. I was just trying to figure it out. So maybe that's part of why I got distracted from like some of the vocal parts. It's just, you know. But then again, I guess that would sort of argue that it has replay value because of that, because there's all those little sort of nuances that you pick up on the second or third listen. So that's cool. The production, recording, mixing, and mastering was well done. I did like the way that the vocals were treated. The rapped main sort of vocals and the verses were fine. The filtering of the ladies' vocals and the chorus sections were great, and I like the fact that we panned them on the sides there to give them sort of space around the guitar solo that came in the middle. I liked the way the drums were filtered here, that we knew to sort of bring them down on the bridge sections and stuff like that to make a sense of space. We clearly understood what we were going for, and I think some of the feedback I provided today is stuff they already know. It was just towing a fine balance there. It's cool that we were able to get the stuff going with you know, like the guitar lines itself. Like again, there was a fuzziness to the guitar that I didn't particularly mind. It's definitely a Strat tone. I can see a Stratocaster in the album art for it. Well, the album ought to be up there somewhere, I think. But I can definitely hear a Strat in that kind of fizzy kind of tone in some of those lead parts. And again, kudos, like the leads were played cleanly. He's a great guitarist. The musicians in this act individually played very well or sang very well. I do think there was a chemistry between the elements, even if it was, in my opinion, a little bit too busy from an arrangement or a compositional perspective. Especially for like a chord progression that wasn't necessarily elevated by having that much. There was a sadness, The Last of Us. It made sense harmonically with the title and some of the stuff we're talking about with the song. I just don't necessarily think I understand what the track is about after listening to it on a first impression basis. The filtering and EQing of the instruments in that regard were good. The placement of them in the stereo field was fine. It was nice and wide, and there was variation with those positions, like with some of the vocal parts from NikkiNailBomb, how it came in and out. The clarity of the words coming through is in part because of the compression applied to the vocals. That was very tasteful. The limiting compression overall on the track was fine, and aside from a little bit of stuff going on, I think with like the tremolo or the vibrato effect on the guitar, I think it was just, there was a weird resonance in the low mids there that kind of stuck out like a bit of a sore thumb in certain parts of the end bit. But aside from that, there were no other resonant frequencies. It was nice and easy to listen to, and limiting compression was done well. I think it was nice and loud without pumping. And that's effectively my review of The Last of Us by Drazmatik featuring Killah Cal, NikkiNailBomb and Watts. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go check out their various social medias and a Spotify page. A shout out as well to Eastern Standard Time Records, which, as I understand it, are the label that these acts are currently affiliated with. So go check out the website if you want to see more of their stuff or hear more of their stuff. Stay cool, stay safe. Please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.